Alright, time to get things down to business and finally do things in the style that you know me best for. So let's get down to it. These are the top 13 worst films of 2012.
I'm the fear that keeps you awake. I'm the shadows on the wall. I'm the monsters they become. I'm the nightmare in your skull. I'm a dagger in your back. An extra turn upon the rack. I'm the whimpering of your heart. A stabbing pain, a sudden start. And it's so easy when you're evil. This is the light you see. The devil tips his hat to me. I do it all because I'm evil. And I do it all for free. Your tears are all the company I need.
Number 13, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. This was a film I was hoping would be bad for different reasons. In the sort of situation of so bad it's good. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter is a retelling of the life of the famous president who seemed to have led a double life hunting those of the undead. That sounds pretty awesome, actually. And, with the film having an R rating, you think it would go all out with it, but not in the way I was hoping it would turn out. Bear in mind, I've never read Seth Grahame-Smith's original novels, so I don't have much to say about the source material, but I am aware that he did write the script. I feel like the main problem with this film is a major miscommunication between director and script, as Timur Bekmambetov, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, made this way too melodramatic in its execution. Not only that, but the pacing and characters in this movie are really disjointed that it's hard to really get invested in anything that's going on. Even when they try to develop our characters, it just comes off as generic and uninteresting. Maybe if it had somebody like Sam Raimi on board, someone who can know how to bring a proper balance between horror, drama, and comedy, it might have been interesting, but with this, not so much.
For the people. Shall not perish from the earth, from the earth.
Number 12, Wrath of the Titans. Yeah, because so many people were pining for a continuation of this. Look, I wasn't too fond of the 2010 remake of Clash of the Titans, but I wouldn't say it was the worst thing I saw that year. This film... yeah, this was dumb. After a lack of praying to the gods resulting in their powers weakening, the prison containing Kronos is falling apart and will soon unleash the Titan upon the world. Zeus soon becomes prisoner to Hades as a sacrifice for when Kronos is released, and it's up to Perseus to save the day once again. Yeah, looking back on this film, it's just completely all over the place. Action scenes are pretty standard, CGI is tolerable at best, but the script and story just really drive this film downward, and the acting isn't anything spark. Don't get me wrong, I don't blame the cast for their performances, it's just the material that they had was lacking. Although, considering it had the director of Texas Chainsaw at the beginning, I'm not really that surprised.
You're sweating like a human. Next, it'll be tears.
Now quiet.
Number 11, Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted. DreamWorks Animation is quite a wild card as an animation studio. While Pixar has expectations of good quality animated movies and Illumination and Blue Sky are pretty much discount store cheap brand stuff, DreamWorks seems to be caught somewhere in the middle of that. Look, I never really was a fan of the Madagascar series to begin with, and trust me when I say that this film didn't change my mind whatsoever. So we've gone from zoo animals ending up in Madagascar, then to them leaving Madagascar to end up in Africa, and then from Africa to Europe and back home all at once. Look, story aside, the Madagascar films really don't have much going else for them. Sure, the animation is incredibly vibrant and colorful, the voice acting is okay, and it does have recognizable design to it, but that's about it. I didn't really find any of the jokes that funny, the characters are boring, some of them aren't really necessary to the plot, and yeah, I think that's all I gotta say, it's just boring. I mean, it's not the worst kids film I saw, but it's still not something I would recommend.
Oh, yeah! DreamWorks' Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted, in 3D.
Number 10, Dark Shadows. Man, did this turn out to be a disappointment. Now, I'm no expert on the Dark Shadows mythos, but I will enlist the positives that I did like about this film. With it being a Tim Burton film, the set designs, costumes, and makeup are phenomenal. I enjoyed everything that looked gothic and eerie in this film, right down from the old harbor of old-timey England to Collinswood. During the first 45 minutes of this movie, I was really enjoying just how it felt like the show with what I have seen, and I gotta give compliments to the cast for actually doing the best with what material they had with it. But like I said, after like the 45-minute mark, and when they try to do comedy, it kinda goes downhill from here. At some points it works, but other times it just feels really unbalanced. I don't know if it was from whether the script they had to work with wasn't good, or if the direction wanted to go into some place completely different, or maybe if it was a studio decision, but something really wasn't right here. I can't exactly say if it was a proper adaptation, but as a film, it doesn't seem to find a proper tone, and I think that's the biggest downfall.
Are you stoned or something?
They tried stoning me, my dear. It did not work.
Number 9, Mirror Mirror. It's kind of surprising how the better Snow White film that came out in 2012 was the one that ended up starring Kristen Stewart as Snow White. Then again, its only competition was Mirror Mirror from the director of The Cell and The Immortals. Now, granted it wasn't as bad as it was marketed to be, but that doesn't really redeem much of it. The film still suffers from exaggerated costumes and scenery, the script is uncomfortably awkward, and there are performances that just make me go, why? I guess what they were trying to do is do a parody on the Snow White story, but trying to do something with its own vision, but what was this film trying to be? Also, for a family film that tries to have funny jokes for both kids and adults, the only one that actually did make me laugh was when Nathan Lane says he got raped by a grasshopper. That's a thing I just said.
Definitely have a happily ever after thing going on.
Mirror, mirror.
Number 8, The FiveYear Engagement. Remember the last time that Jason Segel and Emily Blunt were in a movie together? It turned out bad. And this one is actually kind of worse. As you can guess, the film is about a couple who end up getting engaged for 5 years, go through that trope of moping about their lives, breaking up, getting back together, blah 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 blah. I don't give a damn. Seriously, I got so sick of this damn couple before we even reached the 20-minute mark. Never thought I'd see a wedding comedy that would actually make me hate the couple this much. Segel and Blunt have such awful chemistry together that you don't end up enjoying any of their shenanigans and just end up getting annoyed by everything that they do. It doesn't matter if they're being cute or whining constantly, the script doesn't give them any proper material to work off of. I mean, aside from The Muppets in 2011, there hasn't really been a script that I've seen Jason Segel write that I actually thought was good. Surprisingly enough, the only characters I actually liked in this movie were Chris Pratt and Alison Brie, who play Segel's friend and Blunt's sister who end up getting married themselves. I actually expected to hate both of them, especially Pratt's character, but surprisingly enough, they actually made me want to see a movie about these two instead. Look, honestly, if you just plan on watching this movie, just watch Pratt and Brie scenes only and just skip everything else. You'll thank me later.
The FiveYear Engagement.
A very popular flower is the white peony.
I've heard that the black peonies are actually much bigger.
Boy, you guys are obsessed with peonies.
Number 7, John Carter. This was a film I was really hoping to like, but much to my displeasure, it ended up being one of the biggest letdowns I've ever seen. I was fresh off of reading the Barsoom books by Edgar Rice Burroughs and was really hoping that this film could impress me. Hell, with Andrew Stanton attached as writer and director, it gave me hope that it would turn out great. And I have nothing against the cast in this film, but with how this direction and script were handled, it just feels like a mix between a Star Wars prequel and that Prince of Persia movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. There are people who have said that they actually really loved this film and actually wanted a sequel to happen, and you know, maybe there could be something that I'm missing, but as it stands, I did not like how this turned out. And with no sequel on the way, maybe we might see a reboot come sometime in the future. It is possible.
I was too late once. I won't be again.
Number 6, Lockout. What happens when you take Escape from New York and put it in space? You get a piece of shit movie, that's what. Seriously, this has to be one of the most obnoxious and idiotic experiences that I've ever had watching a movie. And I know there are people who are going to stand up and try to defend this, saying it's supposed to be a dumb, fun action flick. It's not. It really isn't. I got the dumb action part, but didn't really feel the fun from it. The film is about a criminal named Snow who's requested by the government to rescue the president's daughter, who is trapped in this space prison, and while he's there, he tries to find the one prisoner who can help clear his name. Yeah, I stopped caring about 10 minutes ago. The action was loud and annoying, I hated most of the people and dialogue here, the setting and effects looked like something out of the Sci-Fi Channel, and the only thing I actually did find tolerable throughout the film was Guy Pearce's performance. But even then, I wouldn't say it's enough to watch this movie. Luckily for him, he did have a good film that came out in 2012 that I really loved. But unfortunately, he also has another film on this list that is going to be further down.
And we're probably gonna die.
Number 5, Gone. Don't remember this one? Well, let's talk about it. Gone is about Amanda Seyfried's friend going missing, who she believes was kidnapped by the same guy who abducted her years ago. And it's a mystery thriller. Or is trying to be one because it's really dull as hell. The writing is probably some of the worst that I've seen from any kind of abduction mystery, especially with characters like these. The cops are useless, the townsfolk aren't necessary to the story, and Amanda Seyfried... Yeah, look, I think she's a terrible actress, and this film didn't convince me otherwise. Especially when she's playing this big of an idiot. See, this is someone who falls directly into the villain's trap, later ends up being as bad as him, and then tells the police after she kills him that the whole thing was just all in her head. What? You know, I remember somebody recommending me this film as a rental. This one passed for the 50% off bargain bin at the dollar store. Number 4, Paranormal Activity 4. Despite the enjoyment that I got out of the first 3 films, Paranormal Activity 4 is one of the biggest sellouts and weakest horror films I have ever seen. And trust me, the selling out is the least of your problems. You'd think after Paranormal Activity 3, which I believe to be the best of them with its creativity of having the demon act as the imaginary friend, you would think that the series would continue with that level of effort. Nope. We have to make with seeing the ghost through Xbox Kinect, MacBook, Skype, and smartphone footage. And instead of one creepy child in the care of demons, we have 2. That goes completely nowhere. Then we have an evil army that's being built. That ends up being a jump scare leading into another jump scare. Not only that, but we have 0 levels of likability from any of our characters. You know, to Saw's credit, they at least got a reaction out of me.
Oh my god!
Number 3, Resident Evil Retribution. We are about 5 movies into this franchise, and it's still not dead, and it keeps getting worse. After the events of the last film, the ship that Alice and the others were on is destroyed, and now Alice is being required by Wesker, who is still alive for some reason, to help fight against the Red Queen. You know, I stopped caring like 5 movies ago. Why am I still watching this? This is a film that perfectly defines shit happens, because almost everything that happens in this movie feels like it's being made up on the spot. Plot conveniences, plot holes, lack of characters, not just in development, but characters completely, acting is non-existent. Just about everything in this film is like listening to a kid ramble on about what he saw from his or her older siblings' gameplay footage. Did Paul Anderson really write these movies drunk? Cause it definitely feels like that, especially in the editing and direction. With how choppy and unpleasant the action scenes are to sit through, to the really murky look of the film, I just don't get what anybody sees any kind of appeal to them. At least, we're almost done. Number 2, Prometheus. Oh, I know a lot of you people are going to be sour about me not liking this movie, and then throwing out the argument that, I'm too stupid to really like this film. But, I was going to play things nice, but I don't give a damn. This film is constantly littered with not only bad character development, but some of the worst direction that I've seen thus far from any film in 2012. Here, drink this glass of scotch that I just dipped my finger into. This pod in the captain's quarters is only for males only, indicating that Waylon is here with us. Oh, a penis snake. Let's get closer to it. Look out! The ship's toppling over. Run in the direction it's toppling after getting a C-section. I know that's just only a few problems I have with this film, but considering I'm also going to be talking about Alien Covenant later on this Halloween, you know what, I'm gonna keep my I'm not gonna waste my time with this crap. After trying to watch this film 3 times, I still can't find any appeal in it. The characters are awful, the acting is lousy, the direction is horrid, and there's nothing worthy of suspense to it. But at least it's not number 1. Oh boy.
Big things have small beginnings.
Number 1, the worst film of 2012 is Piranha 3 Double D. Now, I know there are a lot of people who want to say that, everybody enjoys a bad horror movie. I myself am one of those people. However, I failed to see any kind of enjoyment from this film. Let's start at the beginning of this tragedy. Going back to the first film, Piranha 3D, the 2010 remake of the 70s B-movie, was one of the big summer flicks to jump on board the 3D craze when it was still rising in its peak. And I will actually admit, even without the 3D, it's still a fun, cheesy gore fest, and I really enjoyed it. And now we arrive to the sequel done by the creators of the Beast trilogy and The Collector. And it pretty much contradicts almost everything established from the last movie. I tell you, there was nothing to enjoy about this movie. Not a single damn thing in it. The acting, non-existent. Direction, awful. The script, there was no script for this. This also felt like one of the cheapest films you could ever witness, because for a film about killer piranha, there's hardly any gore in this movie. It felt like I was watching a Sci-Fi Channel parody, especially with how much bad humor they try to give you. Hell, there's even a scene where Ben Rames returns from the last film after he was supposed to be dead, and they decide to have him rip off Planet Terror by having guns for legs, all while angelic choir music is playing. Oh, and that's not the only kind of joke that they try to do in this film. In a later on scene, they have a piranha tadpole swim up a woman's vagina, and then as she is having sex with her boyfriend, the piranha grows into a baby one inside the guy's dick and has to cut it off. Also, they drag back poor Christopher Lloyd from the first movie too, only he looks so bored to be there. While the first Piranha 3D wasn't anything to write home about, it was still a film that I found suspenseful, nail-biting, and full of characters I actually gave a damn about. So anyone who's trying to give out the argument saying, oh, it's trying to appeal to the same crowd that loved the first movie, that's bullshit. This film has nothing to root for. You don't root for the protagonist, you don't root for anyone to die, you just root for them to leave and go away forever. And that's really pathetic to do. It's sad because there are talented people out there who are still willing to create meaningful stories of their own, and the fact that shit like this is what's getting greenlit instead is pathetic. Piranha 3 Double D is a spit in the face if you give any kind of attention to it. It offends me as a moviegoer, it offends me as a movie maker, and it just offends me as an overall human being.
Piranha 3 Double D.